very much. I already lost translation, so sorry for my early arrival at the podium. Good morning, and thank you, Ms. Suk, for their work as a chairman of the foundation. I was really heartwarmed last night to hear about the history of the foundation and your family's commitment to the burn community. It was very touching, and we had a wonderful evening learning about the work that you're doing here in South Korea. The Phoenix Society is a community of burn survivors, their loved ones, firefighters, and healthcare providers. Our founder, over 40 years ago, was a burn survivor, and he saw the commitment that we had to each other in peer support and supporting each other's journey. Our promise is simple. You're greater than. You're greater than this incident that happened to you, this injury that we've all experienced. In the face of injury and pain, we come alongside each other and let each other know that we're greater than this single event in our life. It's not working? All right, there you go. We're reminded that hope is greater than fear, and community is greater than isolation. So for over 40 years, the Phoenix Society has focused on long-term recovery and helping people get back to their lives and living fully after an injury. We can go to the next guy. I'm sure that none of us anticipated sitting in this room today. We end up here in various ways, but yet you're here today. And I have to think that you're here because you realize that being alone is not the way to heal. It's about community. And I was very excited to see the title of this conference and that word community in there, because I think that's the essence of recovery, is being part of a community. I don't have my clicker, I have the clicker, but one of the things that we've learned over the years is that the physical recovery is usually the main focus in the hospital. I was also a former burn nurse and a survivor, and I recognize that physical recovery is long and arduous, and we kind of get stuck in the physical aspect. And sometimes we've forgotten about the social and emotional recovery and healing and the spiritual healing that we have to have. One of the things that we focus on at the Phoenix Society is this holistic approach, and I think you're doing that here, which is so exciting to see. In the US now, about 96% of the people treated in burn centers are surviving. That's much different than 20, 30 years ago. So we're challenged now with how do we help people not just survive, but thrive after their burn injury. So one of the things we focus on, as survivors, we have advocated for not just quality of care, but how do we prevent it from happening to others? We have a strong voice in that. How do we improve quality of care for our comrades that come behind us? Our voice has been really important in that, I think, to remind the medical community that it's beyond the physical. It's the emotional and psychological healing. One of the projects that we've been involved in that I'm really proud of, and not because it's research, but because it was driven by the survivor community. We understood for over 40 years that the burn impacts our relationships with our families. It impacts the way we go back out into the community. It impacts our relationships with intimate relationships, our spouse and our families. All these things were things that we've talked about for over 40 years. And we've been involved in a research study with some of the leading researchers in the US, Harvard and Boston University and Mass General, which are big names. But I will tell you, this research project would not have happened. It would never have happened without the combined effort of this community and the Phoenix Society. We were able to reach out to our community and have the survivor voices brought to the table. Enough people for this study to be done. Otherwise, it never would have been done. And one of the reasons why this is important is that without the data to show that we have challenges. It's hard to get resources and support for programs like this. So this tool is a self-assessment tool that we can take as we start to recover, and we can go online and we can say, how am I doing, really? And it'll kind of spit out a number and show you how you're doing on your recovery comparatively to the rest of the community. So you can identify areas that you might need to do a little extra work in. Maybe it's about going to the grocery store and getting out in public with a little less social anxiety, which Barbara will spend some time on. This tool will be able to help us assess programs like this, the social skills program, and other projects that you're doing here. So this project, again, the survivor voice and the advocacy piece of this organization and organizations like yours is critical, not only to our own future, but to the future of this cause and community. Phoenix SOAR is Survivors Offering Assistance in Recovery. In 2001, we piloted this program. It's a peer mentoring program, like I believe you have here, right? We put together medical professionals, survivors, mental health care professionals, and we developed the SOAR program. Before that, the Phoenix Society did mentoring among ourselves, and we could never really engage with the burn centers because we weren't always ready to give help. We would show up and we were struggling ourselves as survivors in the early days. And so it didn't work out well. But this program was structured. It had input from all of the community, so we could develop a program that would work in a hospital setting. It's not easy walking onto a burn center as a survivor to be part of that team, really as part of the team of support services. And it sounds like you're doing that here. So as a survivor, you go through a training. First, we ask you a lot of questions. Are you ready to give back? Are you ready to support another? And it helps you kind of gauge if you're emotionally ready to help another. And then there's a training about what is a peer mentor. It's probably not giving medical advice. We get into a lot of trouble as survivors when we start giving our own medical advice because we're not credentialed for that. So it helps us understand the role. How can we be the best supportive mentor to another? And after that program, after you go through the training, the hospital staff will give you feedback on how your peer mentoring is doing, because we all want feedback on how we're doing in supporting another. This program has now spread to over 70 burn centers in the US. We've worked with many other countries to develop a mentoring program based on this model. The challenge will be, we're just still scratching the surface. There's many people out in the community that aren't in the hospital setting. In our country, it's pretty large. People are treated in a burn center and they may go 12 hours to their home and there's no one there and they're alone. So what we're trying to do is take this program to a more virtual way. There's a lot. How many people have a phone that they can get on and talk to somebody? You have phones here, right? You have them? All right. Just seeing if you're still with me. How do we connect people virtually when they can't be face-to-face with another survivor to help them? World Burn, I'll get to in a minute. We're looking at ways that we can connect people there, too, virtually. So this is our peer program, SOAR. You're good. How many people have been to World Burn here? Phoenix Society's World Burn Congress. It's a handful of people I know, and it's wonderful to see your faces here. World Burn Congress is similar to this. It's grown now to over 1,000 people who come, survivors, family members. And that program has evolved over time. It started like this. My first World Burn Congress looked like this. Small, intimate, a first step where we came together and told story, told our journey and our story. And over the years, we've learned from this environment about what those needs are, what we're missing, where are the gaps to help you, how can we help each other better, how can we share knowledge to go back into our communities to maintain programs in different states in the US. So that program has grown now where we have a children's program that for all ages. We have a young adult program. We also have a burn-injured firefighter program that's grown out of that. And we learned that one year when we asked the firefighters to help us get people from the airport to the hotel. We recognized that they were struggling too with the trauma of a burn. We recognized that the healthcare professionals really valued coming to World Burn Congress because they saw that people could do well 5, 10, 20 years out, and that they lived very successful lives. And if you're working in the acute setting, sometimes you don't get to see that. And it's very fulfilling to come back and see the survivor community and see how they're doing so well. So World Burn Congress this next year, this is your crazy group at World Burn Congress. I think that was a few years ago. We have a lot of fun there, and I hope you'll have fun here too, and learn that this is a safe place for you to share not just the good things that's going on with your recovery, but the challenges. Nowhere else is anybody going to understand like they will in this room. So I encourage you to take this time here for the next day and share not only your hopes, but your challenges and your struggles, because there's probably someone here that can help you. One of the things we've learned through World Burn Congress is the resources once people go home, we need them at all ages. So again, the You Belong program, which is part of our World Burn Congress, where we have very therapeutic programs for all ages, but we're also working with the parents in the other part of the conference to support the learning that each of them are having. We, for many years in the U.S., had a lot of burn camps. Do you have those here, burn camps for children? There were a lot of them, and we were spending a lot of resources just in that one area. The challenge is the children go home, and the parents don't have the tools to help them. So what we're trying to do is not just support the child, but the siblings and the parents, and helping them deal with the trauma that they've experienced as well. I know with my sister, she struggled more sometimes emotionally than I did because her parents were ripped away at the age of 14, and they were focused on me for 3 or 4 months. And that had a lot of impact on my sister. So we have to look at the whole family. And when we say survivor, we mean the whole family. So we've now evolved some of these programs. We have a fellowship program now for young people coming out of college that want to work in this field. So we have a 9-month program that we're piloting this year to give opportunity in some of the therapeutic programming that we're doing. We have, I think, 2 master's level professionals that want to get into this type of work. We have a young adult kind of network that we'll be piloting that has to do with the SOAR program. So it's a special group of people that maybe hasn't had a lot of focus. That transition from child to adult is often very difficult. So one of the things we're doing is Barbara, that little girl, the image there is part of Sylvia's steps. We're taking Barbara's work that you'll hear about a little bit later into new places. And that's really put throughout all of our programs. You'll hear about this work next. The STEPS program, Rehearse Your Responses, is in our SOAR training. It's at World Burn, it's online, and it really is some of the foundational tools that we use to give ourselves confidence to go out into the community. Our online training, one of the things I mentioned when I started, your voice is critical. As a community, no one knows it like we do. So we are trying to help people learn how to use their story with purpose. Some of you may really be passionate about preventing this from ever happening to anybody else. I know when I first was in recovery, that was my main focus, prevention. We've got to stop this from happening. And I had a lot of energy and focus on my recovery to do that. That gave me meaning and purpose to my experience. So some of us go down that path. Some of us really just want to help another. When we hear about a burn survivor being admitted to the burn unit, the first thing in our heart is we want to run to the burn center and support that person and that family. So there's a lot of drive in us, I think, to help another. So advocacy is a really important part of what we do. We have online training. We've been very involved in the codes and the support of prevention, fire sprinklers and things like that. But most of all, we've been advocates for quality care and continued care throughout our lifespan, because until recently, that piece was missing. Some of the things we've done is a campaign looking at the media representation of burn survivors. I don't know about in your country, but when you look at the media representation of burn survivors, it's not nice, it's not pretty. It's very negative, and it's usually we're the villain in the story. And so we really did a lot of research and looked at that and are starting to stand up to that, just like other causes have done. And I think we're one of the last few to stand up and say, this isn't right. And we must stand up as a community and say, that's not who we are. So that's been a really exciting opportunity. We just started rolling that out last year, and we'll continue to do that work. Last, Burn Support Magazine is another piece that we put out to all the burn centers. It's online. It's full of stories of healing, personal stories, issues such as post-traumatic stress, some of the things that we experience as we recover. So that's all available online as well. And we talked earlier about the translation of content back and forth with the foundation. I think we have great opportunity to work together to increase all of our resources and access to that. Really, the bottom line is your voice matters. First of all, for your own healing. As an advocate for yourself and your care, I encourage you to ask for what you need. And if you can't find it, keep asking, because eventually these programs will continue to flourish. You'll get more support, and this will grow. I'm sure when I come back the next time, this will be 3 times the size, and more survivors will be here because you'll be welcoming them to your community. Community is greater than isolation. Again, that's one of our key sayings of helping people realize that you don't have to go through this alone. There are other people that have felt your struggles and overcome and live successfully. And I remember one of my first world burns going with my mom. I was a brand new nurse, and I went because I got a free trip to go to this conference that I didn't know anything about. And I sat there and I realized that my story is just one story. There's so many others, and I learned so much that year, not just personally from my own recovery, but as a nurse and as a healthcare professional, what we needed yet to do. So continue the great work here. We look forward to working with you in the foundation for many years to come, and we will continue this movement, if you will, for burn recovery.